I have to say I was a bit confused by the DBS when it was launched. It was something that was covered in sporting accoutrements. It had great big ceramic discs, and a lot of the narrative behind it was about how it was a range-topping sports car, and yet when I drove it, it was quite soft. It felt more in the GT mould than the sports car mould. And I tell you what, the last couple of days, I've really, really grown to enjoy this car. This has done 24,000 miles, this one, and it feels really quite tight. And its slow responses and its more relaxed nature works on the road. It sort of exposes where the 599 isn't quite so clever as a GT car. That's because everything about the DBS is less immediate and less shocking. Its steering is slower geared. Its engine doesn't have that same incredible appetite for revs, so it arrives more slowly. It's more of a torque engine. Okay, it's still actually about 30 odd foot-pounds of torque shy of the Ferrari at 420 foot-pounds, but to me it comes lower down. In the Aston, you really have got 6 gears just to choose how fast you want to accelerate, because it'll work in 6th from about 1200 RPM, and pull too. And it's less ostentatious than the Ferrari. There's less noise, there's less exhaust noise, you know? It's just a more relaxing thing to be in. In fact, on the road, I think it has got the Ferrari licked. I just think it's a nicer car. I also found I could drive it quicker in slightly damp conditions, because all this nonsense where the Ferrari's sniffing out cameras and being nervous, the old Aston just slopes on. But it has to be said, for out and out sports car excitement, I think the Ferrari has got this thing licked. It's not a huge difference, but at high revs, the Ferrari just moves into a slightly different area from either of the other two. It becomes something world-class fast. There aren't many cars that feel as quick as a 599 in third gear between 6 and 8,500 RPM, and certainly neither the Aston or the Bentley are in that league. But it's at this point we've got to sort of explain, or at least discuss, the nature of a GT car. For me, a GT car is something that I'd be happy tooling around in the UK, but if someone said, you've got to go to Nice tomorrow, you'd actually think about driving there through the night rather than getting on an aeroplane. And if I was going to do that, I think I'd take the Aston over the Ferrari, and that's a considerable accolade for this thing. The Aston's just slower in its responses, where the Ferrari wants to snap into a quick oversteer and demands really, really quick, accurate actions from the driver. This car's more forgiving. It just feels a bit softer everywhere. And I like that laziness. I expect that in a GT car. Doesn't mean it doesn't want to play though, because this is one of the better feelings. I do love it. There's an inherent balance, quite a long wheelbase. I've got more steering lock so I can choose different angles, it's just more forgiving. Some cars just feel balanced. They feel like there's a big window between what is understeer, what is oversteer, and what's the sort of comfortable ground in between, but also how you can work into that understeer and that oversteer. And the windows are all big in the DBS, a big, welcoming, friendly place. I was harsh on this car at launch because I just didn't quite understand the way it had been presented to me. But now I've had time to spend more time in them over the years, I do really enjoy them. I personally much prefer this to the little V12 Vantage. I just think this is a better sorted car. The Bentley Continental SuperSports weighs 2,247 kilograms, and that's including its 100 kilogram weight reduction over the standard Continental GT. So this is effectively a DBS towing a Caterham R500. but look what it'll do. I've got my little Dynalicious thing, you can't see it on the dashboard. So we'll see what it does off the line, shall we? Third. Fourth. Fifth. So that's just done, slightly uphill in the wet, 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds, and a standing quarter in 12.5 seconds at 119 miles an hour. That is patently absurd. So this is the big luxury GT that's been made a bit more sporting. I tell you what, the people at Bentley are very, very clever. They understand this subject. This is the surprise package of the group. I think it's the best road car of the three if you actually wanted to use them and do long distances. Because of that weight and its four-wheel drive, it's got immense traction. It just seems to bludgeon the road surface ahead of you into submission. In that, it feels quite Veyron-like. It's got this sort of on-demand performance. You just mash the right pedal, the Autobox takes care of everything for you, and you just go. You just seem to look down at the speedometer doing incredible numbers. And when the Ferrari ahead of you is trying to get away and the bloke behind the wheel is sweating and his sphincter is biting away at the seat, in the Bentley you just go, God, I wish Radio 4 was a bit louder. (2,247 kilograms). Of course, the big question is, will it do great big drifts? The answer is yes. Right. The Bentley sort of sits with my understanding. Again, it's my personal understanding of what a GT car should be. It's not a sports car, and yes, you do hear the odd stone pinging around where they've pulled some sound deadening out, but the ride is 50% better than the other two, and it's just a much more comfortable car. I'm sitting in a heated bucket seat. I've got a big sat-nav screen. I know the others have got some of this gear, but the Bentley is just much, much more comfortable. Such an athletic manner for such a big car, they've had to throw some big numbers at it. You've got that massive power and torque figure combination, then you've got the 400 mil plus discs. It's just a big thing. But I'd expected it to all fall apart when you try and get up it and let the car move around. I mean, after all, a Bentley doesn't want to do big skids and be taken beyond the limit. It's actually really good. You need some space, but when it does let go, it lets you have a play. Very generous.
Now, because at Evo we're profoundly immature, we decided to have a drag race down the Continental runway. Aston v Bentley v Ferrari, and as you can see, the conditions rather favoured the four-wheel drive Bentley. And this was my view of that launch. You see, I had the traction on in the 599, I tried my hardest, but the Bentley just disappeared into a different time zone. And by the time the Ferrari can make sense of that wet surface, yeah, the Bentley's gone. But be in no doubt that the Ferrari is the quickest car here once it's up and rolling. And even though the Bentley just won that, the Ferrari was marching on, and a few yards later it would have been ahead.
To reach any kind of firm conclusion here is very difficult because they are three magnificent cars. But I need to refer back to my early explanation of what I think a GT car is, because a GT car is that most difficult of compromises. It's something that's great fun to drive, but also soothing over long distances. They're two conflicting abilities, let's say. And there's one car here that does do the best of both worlds, and I have to say, It's the Aston. No, it's not as exciting as the Ferrari and it's not as fast, but then few cars are. And it's not as comfortable as the Bentley. But it is actually a wonderful compromise. I didn't think I'd be saying that. It's the best car to live with here day in, day out, because when you want to go fast and you want to be excited, it'll do just that. But if you wanted to pop it in 6th and roll all the way to Nice, it'd be great for that too. So, yeah, it's my winner.